señorita Gina Cordero. Este junta estaba organizado de la parte de Zulema Reina. This meeting is going to go ahead and get started at 6:02. Our members of the council that are here are our mayor, Rudy Cruz Jr., our representative at large, Ruben Reyes, and our District 3 representative, Ms. Gina Cordero. If for whatever reason at any time during this meeting you have questions or concerns, you can always go into the lobby. Ms. Kimberly Valenzuela will be there to help you. If you have not signed in yet, please sign in. This meeting was coordinated at the request of Ms. Zulema Reina, so we'll go ahead and present her with the floor at this time. Ms. Reina, the floor is now yours. Vamos a comenzar esta junta en unos poquitos minutos. ¿Hay alguien aquí que necesita ayuda de ah, traducción de inglés a español? Por favor, váyanse con la señorita allá atrás que está dando los audífonos para que puedan entender lo que están diciendo en inglés. Hello, everyone. Check, check. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you can all take your seats. If you're getting your headphones, go ahead and continue working with our translator. This meeting was organized by Ms. Azulema Reina, who will be leading the meeting. Before we begin, we will have everyone introduce themselves, starting with our representative at large, Mr. Ruben Reyes, and then making our way all the way to the end.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ruben Reyes, and I am the at-large representative for the beautiful city of Socorro.
Good afternoon. My name is Raul Ortega. I'm with TxDOT El Paso District.
Good afternoon, Tomas Trevino, El Paso District Engineer for TxDOT.
Good evening, Rudy Cruz Jr., Mayor for the City of Socorro. Muy buenas tardes a todos, el alcalde de Socorro, Rudy Cruz Jr. Bienvenidos.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gina Cordero del Distrito 3.
Lorraine Quimero, City Planner and Development Director for the City of Socorro.
Roger Williams, TxDOT El Paso Environmental Coordinator.
Good evening, Sal Loto, El Paso TxDOT.
Good evening, Kim Johnson with ICF, and we are assisting CEA in the city with the environmental and public involvement.
Good evening, Frank Corrado, CEA Group.
Hi everyone, Diana Guerrero with CEA Group.
Good afternoon, Eduardo Cabo, Executive Director of the El Paso NPO.
Claudia Ortega, also with ICF, working on environmental.
Ms. Reina, the floor is yours.
Muy buenas tardes a todos, gracias por tomarse el tiempo de venir a esta junta. Esta junta tiene como motivo llegar a una solución, a mirar cuáles posibilidades tenemos como comunidad y sobre todo para nuestra ciudad. Thank you very much for taking your time to be here today. The purpose of this meeting and our goal today is to actually be able to all come together for a possible solution. Sure. Okay, sounds great. The purpose of this meeting is for us all to come together and hear all sides and possibly come to a solution along with our city officials as well. Before you have a list of questions that were sent to me by the residents, and we're just gonna move forward with each and one of them, okay? I will ask my first question, and this is pertaining to the ICF group, and it says, there was a YouTube video presented by Texas DOT, and in that video, it says that this alternative is actually the best for human environment impact, potential impacts to land use and land cover, the best for natural environment impact, and the best for public input. How is this even considered that it's not gonna be an impact to our environment if the majority of the portion from the Arterial 1 covers the majority of natural environment and farmland? How can that be the best option for that?
Oh, I thought, okay, thank you. I'm going to try to speak slowly so that it can be translated.
Mhm.
And who's translating for me? Okay, oh, you have it on the headset? Oh, thank you. And if I'm going too fast, just put your hand up, because I sometimes talk fast. One thing I wanted to clear up to begin with is when you say TxDOT presented the video, it actually, TxDOT had it on their website because they're associated with the project, and I have a slide that might help with that, but it actually is a city project that has involvement with TxDOT and the MPO. And if I did bring the slides from the public meeting that I thought might help in visualization and people online. So we can also look at that matrix you're talking about, that table that talked about those issues. And if I may, I might want to pull that up.
Thank you.
And if you could go to slide 10. And if it would be helpful, we can go through the whole slide set, because sometimes some of the people here may not have been at the public meeting, and it might be beneficial to just go through some of that together so that if there are more questions, you all are free to ask them about it.
That's fine. If you want, we can just go ahead and move that to the end, only
Okay.
because we have an hour and we do have more questions. With me here is Ms. Rocio. She lives off of Sylvia Court, so her home would be up for demolition. If this passes, she's gonna go ahead and be continuing on with the questions that you have before you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we lost the slide here. So in the slide, I believe this is what you were referring to, is we had maybe about 7 or 8 constraints on the left, and on the top 2, we talk about meets purpose and need, estimated construction cost, regional mobility. Now, if you could see our entire alternative analysis, it included maybe 30 to 40 line items. This is just a representation of our analysis that provides a snapshot that is presentable to the public, because we couldn't fit an entire matrix on this slide. So this just shows a summary of all of our analyses. And if you think about this, as far as regional mobility, the alternative 1 that we had, and we have a slide that shows that if some of you are not, it's near Bauman, that alternative had a little more, I guess it provided more, like it was closer to the city, it used existing roads, but on the other side of it, it had more impacts to the human environment, which are home displacements, communities. So we look at maybe 10 or 15 different types of impacts for homes, communities, environmental, the natural resources. And so we just don't say, well, okay, natural resources, this is better, that's it. We do a quantitative analysis where we count acres of impacts. We do that for agriculture, we do that for residences, we do that for parcels. We look at archaeology, historic resources, but you all are here mostly because of your homes or businesses. And that's what I want to focus on. But we look at all those things, and this is a summary matrix that shows on the far right, alternative 3A revised was the best alternative, and that's indicated by the amount of green. Now, I don't know if that answers the question on, the question number 2, but.
And when you, real quick, when you mention that it's compared to the other alternatives.
And the no build.
It's
The
cost
no build is the base for all of that. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. And does anybody have any questions
Yes,
about
on that
Yes, ma'am.
particular note, that alternative was like the 3rd one on the list when the beginning started. And so what we're trying to understand is how that become the first one after it had been the alternative at the beginning. You had 2 alternatives before that were more feasible than the 3rd one. And now this 3rd one is like the one that you're saying is the most feasible when we were the 3rd alternative overall.
So when we number the alternatives, they're not in order of priority or selection. We number them based on, this in particular was north to south. You know, it was not, there was no indication that alternative 1 was the best or alternative 3 was the worst. It was just a numbering system. So that isn't, we had multiple alternatives, and this actually started with a planning and environmental linkages study that TxDOT did for the region, showing that east-west connectivity was important for the area. There's very limited connection to I-10 from Socorro Road, for example. So that was the initial study, and then we looked at the world of alternatives, which were, we looked at several and came down to 3 viable, which are the 3 you're talking about. Now, we've gone through multiple iterations of these analyses because over time, there's been so much construction out here, we had to go back and remap all of the construction and redo our constraints maps.
Which has changed broadly from when you started to now.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially in our street right now with Sylvia. There's a lot new construction already established, new homes being built, already been sold. And so now this project is gonna affect a lot more people than you originally saw.
Well, we take a snapshot in time for the NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act process. It's a snapshot in time. we actually revised that. The whole area is being developed rapidly, not just this area, but the whole area. And that's indicative of how many times we've had to revise the constraints map. We can't keep up with the development out there. So, and when I say that, I mean mapping it on a constraints map. You know, that's what we're responsible for. So we did try to minimize impacts, and 3A revised has been the best alternative to not have as many direct impacts as some of the others.
But it
And
does have impact to all our community.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying fewer than, and they all have impacts. All the alternatives have impacts to communities, residences, businesses, every single alternative out here. There was no clear path. And even if we were impacting undeveloped land, that would have been farming and agriculture.
Right.
And I will add to it, the issue of Sylvia Court did come up some in the last public meeting we had at Rojas. And we have received comments, and I'll just kind of say stage is still the planning stage. And so the comments we received help, help us look at it from different perspectives and so forth. So I would say that as this develops, that area is one that we've been looking at to see if there is an alternative for that stretch. Because we do understand, and again, the snapshot in time shows it, but construction catches up pretty quick. So if there's another opportunity to make an adjustment, kind of like how the original Alignment 3 started, that had to be adjusted and adjusted further, and it's been through some revisions. So definitely we look at those. The comments we get from the public meetings help a lot. And so, yeah, I want to say that section, though, in particular, that the tie-in to Socorro Road is one that we've been looking at a little bit more to see if we can find some alternatives for that.
Okay, which leads me to the first question, because we started with number 2. And the first question really says, why wasn't the road built before homes were built?
I have a question about that. Which homes?
So the road, so what was it, the arterial built before the establishments of new homes?
That's what I'm saying, because some of these homes were built in the 50s, so I don't know
Right.
which homes in particular you mean.
Yeah, the one that's gonna cross the arterial from arterial at the beginning till the end, okay? Because there's a lot of homes at the beginning toward the end. There's a lot of homes that have been built before. So I guess the community wants to know, why didn't you pre-plan ahead? Why didn't you build these roads before?
This may be a question for some of the other people here, but I will say that you have to have a need for the project. So if there was if it was in the middle of the desert, right, which is sort of what you're saying, right? There was no development, no homes. Well, there would be no need for the project most of the time because there's no traffic. So what we look at, and what the engineers and the MPO and TxDOT and the city all look at, is the need, which is connectivity. This is a community that's growing rapidly, and this is a community that does not have a lot of east-west connection from Socorro Road to I-10. And there's the railroad, if anything happened in the railroad crossing, it restricts emergency services. There's a lot of issues out here, and you have to have a purpose before we can begin a project. So if it's in the middle of the desert, there could be a bigger, like an outer loop or something like that. But this is a community project to help the community access east-west connectivity, if that makes sense.
Any comments from the community? You want me to stay number 2? Okay. So again, she wants me to go to number 2. Based on the YouTube presentation by TxDOT, this alternative was the worst for cost and regional mobility. If there was a possible alternative location for the arterial that may not displace homes, be less costly, and with better regional mobility, would you be open to discuss this with the city of Socorro? And would there be funds available for the feasibility study to determine if it might work?
I'd like to take the first part of that, and then I'll turn it over to somebody that might be able to add about the funding or the considerations you mentioned. But basically, we analyze impacts to the human and natural environment, which includes farmland, it includes commercial businesses, residences, schools, churches, fire stations. We look at everything. We look at not just, when we say natural and human environment, it's a lot of factors we look at. So any alternative would impact residences, commercial businesses. We've minimized that, and alternative 3A revised has the least impacts to those those structures that are the most important to probably the community here. Now, it impacts you all directly, but if you look at the screen, those two items that you mentioned are the two that are like yellow and red, but the rest of them are all green, which means they're the best. So we don't just look at one factor, we look at multiple factors, which is what NEPA requires us to do, and that's the environmental process. And I don't know if anybody has anything to add about the other parts about discussing about funds available. I don't know if that's a question for somebody else.
Just in terms of funding and the funding sources, these types of roadways are larger than what the city of Socorro can handle with their budget. So we do have to enter these partnerships and get into this process with the regional community for funding from TxDOT and the federal government. So with an alternative, a new alternative stepping away from this, at what point does it become a new project? And we then have to go back to the beginning and ask for funds for a new project.
And if you go to slide 2, this slide like that shows the relationships that she's talking about, how everybody's involved in the project. You know, we have the MPO on the top left who identifies, sorry, I'm not used to this. The MPO identifies the need to alleviate congestion and improve east and west connectivity, and then TxDOT, because there's federal funding involved, TxDOT has a purview of oversight and guidance, and then the city is the local government who sponsors the project, and then we are the subs that help get environmental clearance and design the project.
So in other words, there would be a way of obtaining resources in case this is not a feasible alternative?
I mean, we've established that it is a feasible alternative from the requirements that we must follow, but we are open to your comments. We had the public meeting. We have to summarize that. We did choose this alternative to move forward with, but it hasn't received environmental clearance. So right now, we think it is a feasible alternative, but we do, welcome your comments on that because I know you all have concerns.
Any concerns from the public? Anybody wanna? Go, come on.
You mentioned about the train causing maybe issues as far as emergency vehicles and so forth, right? And our problem is that what you're saying is east to west traffic. So this route is going to go north to south, correct? It'll be going north to.
She's referring to the east-west connections. There aren't any that connect Socorro Road directly to I-10. So it's sometimes the orientation of the city. Yes, we are referring to those connections that will get you from Socorro Road to I-10. We have the other connections. We have North Loop, we have Alameda, we have Socorro Road, we have the interstate. But nothing directly will get you from I-10 to Socorro Road. And this project is trying to get us there. With this project,
Okay.
we also have a flyover, which will be a bridge over the railroad.
So you want to get more traffic onto Socorro Road, which is only 2 lanes. How are you going to handle all that traffic, more traffic to Socorro? I don't understand that part. When I think, I'm not an engineer or much about this, but why not wind up those streets first? Wind up Socorro, wind up North Loop, so you can get more traffic in there. You're still trying to put more, you're funneling more traffic into 2 lanes. How's that going to work?
Can you go to slide 12 just so we have the orientation, please? North is up on this map, just so you all know. And as far as, okay, you asked about more traffic on Socorro Road.
That's what you're going to do by putting north to south road.
I'm not a traffic engineer, but I'll tell you this, that the reason that there's a connection needed is because of the traffic on all the other roads trying to go to I-10. There are other issues going north-south, which I would say Socorro Road's north-south, North Loop. I know TxDOT has done a study on North Loop. You know, they're trying to solve some of those issues. Also, you have the Border Highway East that is north-south, that is maybe in the future. That's maybe a future project in the area.
Correct.
But what we're saying is, right now, the connectivity to connect everybody to I-10 and to Socorro Road, there isn't anything available now. Now, the traffic on Socorro Road, I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, but the question is not whether that increases because of the alignment. The traffic is there. The traffic is traveling within the city, and it's more of a connectivity thing than a traffic, because there's
I
no road
understand-
now.
I understand
But
what
I
you-
don't know, so an engineer maybe
No,
would be
I understand
better.
what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
What you're trying to tell me is make a connection to Socorro to I-10. But if you already have a lot of traffic going through Socorro, you're still gonna bring more traffic into a two-lane road. I mean, it's not rocket science, honestly.
Well, I would
mean,
like
and-
an
and-
engineer
and
to
not
answer
just
that question.
Not just that, but you're also gonna get bigger trucks going through there. Because like you say, now they're gonna be building warehouses and so forth, and they're gonna be using these streets. They're gonna be using North Loop.
Well, the warehouses are here. I think
Correct.
they're already here.
And they're outside right now.
Outside of-
They're not using North Loop as much. They're not using North Loop or Socorro. But when you make that connection between I-10 and Socorro, guess what they'll be using?
I would like an engineer to help with that question because I'm not a traffic engineer.
If I may, I think the intent of building this is quite the opposite, is try to take the traffic that that we currently have on Socorro Road and the future traffic, take it off Socorro Road.
How are you gonna do that?
And take it to I-10 as quickly as possible.
But right now, you don't have the warehouses, so you don't have that much traffic as far as what you're talking about. Because, I mean, it's not like the road, people are gonna go to Socorro and stop right there. Once they hit Socorro, they're gonna go east or west. It's again going an east to west problem.
Again, it's a connectivity question. It's not, the intent is not to bring traffic to Socorro Road.
you
It's the
will.
opposite. It's the opposite. Well, warehouses and residential developments and commercial developments are gonna happen, whether we like it or not.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen,
Correct.
right?
I understand that
So the
100%.
idea is really for all of that traffic to get it off Socorro Road and put it on Alameda or put it on North Loop, or eventually, if it's 18-wheelers, put them on I-10.
Okay,
Right.
North Loop again, two-lane highway. The only four-lane highway road is Alameda. So you got 2 lanes going to Socorro, 2 lanes going through North Loop. You're still gonna put more traffic on those streets, and you're gonna, again, it's gonna, like you say, build residentials and commercials are gonna come up.
So-
why not invest more time and money onto North Loop?
Well,
And Socorro.
the question is that all of this traffic wants to go to El Paso, right? Wants to get to Loop 375 or wants to get to I-10, right? But again, that growth is almost inevitable, right? So the idea of Arterial 1 and the idea back in the day of FM 1110 was to provide that connectivity. It's not necessarily to bring more traffic in, but it's to allow it to get out, right? Imagine.
What goes out is gonna come back in.
Well, I think the concern that we have at the regional level is that the development is going to happen, right? And you're gonna have warehouses and 18-wheelers there on existing facilities like Socorro Road, which is a 2-laner, Alameda and North Loop that are not prepared for that. Yeah, I mean, Arterial 1 is not the only solution, or it's not the only element to solve the problem here of the Olden Mission Valley, right?
They're already
But
building-
it's a very important, part of the solution.
But they're already building a connection from the arterial to Clint Cutoff, less than a mile away. They're already building something that's gonna come from I-10 onto North Loop.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only thing I'm asking is, look into North Loop and Socorro. Right. Okay.
I'm gonna move on to question number 3, and it states, does the city have a clear plan to the project's future?
Yes, do you want to refer to the timeline for, one of the slides has a timeline for where we are, where we have come from, and what we're hoping.
I don't think I have it in this slide deck, but we could go, let me see. I could maybe try to explain it. Yeah, I guess if you could go to slide 5, it at least shows public outreach to date, and then where we are now. Can you, if you like, you want me? So this project started in 2021, as you can see on the top left, and that was with a stakeholder meeting. Before that, some studies were done. As I mentioned, the planning and environmental linkages study, and then the city did begin the process for getting funding to do studies for the project. You know, we had a public meeting, and then we had council meetings, stakeholder meetings. That's run through the public meeting, which we had in May. Today, the red star shows the interested parties meeting, we're calling it. We still have another opportunity to comment, which would be the public hearing. So I can look for the actual schedule that we had in the public meeting, but we were talking about finishing up our studies in about a year, and the schematic as well. And then it takes a couple of years to do the right-of-way purchase and also get funding for the project. The project currently doesn't have 100% funding. You buy right-of-way, you finish your detailed design, and then you go to letting, which is when you start construction. And I believe we said 2030. So that was a plan for the project. And that's subject to change depending on a lot of factors.
Moving on to question number 4. Was there a plan developed for the potential displacement of residents or businesses along the corridor?
So I can say what we do, the process that I was talking about, the environmental process, we look at the alternatives, which we had those 3, right? We look at the impacts to residences and parcels, and we compare that and the other environmental constraints and engineering constraints I was describing. And then we say, okay, this is the alternative we move forward with. Right now, we stopped at the public meeting. We said, this is the one that looks good to us. Public, give us your comments. So there's no plan because we don't have a environmental clearance yet. There is a process that is used for right-of-way purchase, and there would be a process if the project proceeds to have a plan to assist with displacements. And I don't, we can't say what that process is because it's a one-on-one. We do have some information at the back that is the right-of-way information and your rights as a property owner, that right now we don't know for sure we're impacting your property, even though we're showing it on a map, as Frank said. But the alternative we have now, if you think your property or your home or your business is impacted, I would get the information so you understand the process a little more. And that's the closest to a plan that is in place because we need to get NEPA clearance first. And I don't know, Frank.
Right, and with the federal funds, it has to follow federal process. Right? So we have to make sure that process is being followed. So that would be the plan.
And that's what's described for the most part in those handouts.
I'm gonna move to question number 5. What penalties or enforcement mechanisms are there in place for the project disruption?
Are you talking disruption during construction or just in general, or?
Mm-hmm. I can answer.
The project in general?
In general.
Mm-hmm.
As many of you may know, the City Council directed staff to research what were the implications of ending the Arterial 1 project. So staff has been meeting with all of the partners in this project to try to answer that question and to bring that information to City Council so that City Council can make an informed decision. there is the possibility of having to pay back the funds that have been spent, but we are not ready. We're still gathering more information and hope to have that information soon to City Council so that they can move forward on that.
In terms of like Texas DOT or the MPO, would there be any penalizations with the MPO or Texas DOT?
So again, the funds that are being used to develop the project, that are up to, well, the total cost so far, I think it's been about $6 million. The federal share and the state share, well, part of that has been fronted by the city of Socorro, so it's been about like 1.1 million or something like that. Remember, these are federal funds, so these are funds that are distributed through the Federal Highway Administration. They come through TxDOT, and then TxDOT distributes these funds to the MPO, and then the local governments are the ones that use the funds to develop this. So there's a lot of agreements and contracts that we have in place, right? But we're trying to support the city of city staff based on the request that they got from council is, you know, what are the implications of canceling a project? Because the contracts state very clearly that the money is to develop a project, right? So if at the end of the day you do not develop then, you know, you're not fulfilling the terms of the contract, right? So, you know, we're still trying to figure out exactly the details so that we can, you know, in support of staff so that they can make a well-informed, you know, recommendation or provide the information to council. But the possibility of having to pay back the money is very real.
So I'm going to move on to question 6. How will the new builds or developments be managed in the context of this project?
The City of Socorro continues to follow its processes and procedures, and where we can, we make room for these developments whenever a new development comes in and it's going to be giving access to arterials, again, wanting to make that connectivity. But right now we're currently limited to what our current plans have. So it's not for this area that's along Arterial 1. In our comprehensive plan, in our master thoroughfare plan, it calls for a certain width that we can request, and where we have been seeing that, we have been having those conversations. Some of the areas that are in the Arterial 1 path are outside of the City of Socorro, but we still have that ability to request these roadways because they are in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, so we oversee the subdivision planning process. So where it does impact and where we can have some say, we are requesting that for what the plan and our what our plan recommends. But that's only when areas and land is being developed and actively being subdivided for construction.
I just wanted to add on that, how would you handle the development that is currently happening in Sylvia? Do these people know what's happening?
Yes, they're aware now. The community's been doing a really wonderful job of reaching out, as well as our ICF staff and the partners that we have. They're aware that this is a possibility because we are limited by, right now, not having this identified as part of or having it previously identified as part of the Arterial 1. They were allowed to continue to construct, and they will be until we reach the terminus of the end of this process, if we can finish it, to see what comes out of it. And as Mr. Corral said, we're still in the planning phases. There still may be alternatives that don't directly impact those homes on Sylvia.
Move on to question number 7. Are there strategies to minimize community disruption and protect agriculture throughout the area?
I can start with the National Environmental Policy Act process. You know, we look at disruption in the way of impact, like, you know, if that's what you mean. Yeah, for disruption, we look at that as impact, whether it's somebody's parcel or somebody's home or somebody's business. It could be that we take a little sliver and that's one kind of impact. But then we could, like you were saying, that the alignment goes, you may your home may be impacted. That's another kind. So we do look at all those, and we have actually exhaustively looked at this project ever since 2021 to try to minimize those impacts. I understand that it makes a difference if it's your home, but we have really gone over and over trying to make sure we minimize impacts to the community. Also, regarding agriculture, the Farmland Protection Policy Act, that is the oversight for that is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, I believe what NRCS is. And that actually is where we look at soils. That's the way that act is sort of utilized, is you look at farmland soils and you try to quantify the impacts, and you go through and you actually fill out a form. Well, none of the soils that are in this area are protected because they're not irrigated. There's stipulations. However, we have looked at them, and we have looked at them throughout the process. Acres of impact to agriculture. We know how important the remaining farms are, and the farmers that not only can affect their livelihood but their home. So that's important to us. So we really look at that, and we try to calculate that. And when we were talking about out of the in the ETJ, where this dips down into the county property, that's because we heard the farmland was being sold. There's pecan farms out there that we may impact with the alignment. We heard they would be sold. So we were happy to hear that we wouldn't be impacting a live farm. We would be impacting a farm that is maybe going to be developed. So that's an example of some of the things we look at. But I don't know if it completely answers the question.
Okay, moving on to question 8. Can Socorro choose not to move forward with the project? And if the city decides not to move forward with the project, can another entity such as the state or the Federal Highway Administration take over? And then
let me start, and then I hope others will come in. So first of all, the Federal Highway Administration does not develop the projects, right? The Federal Highway Administration distributes money to all the states, and the states to the MPOs, and then we make that money available to the entire region so that projects can be developed, right? So the Federal Highway Administration, they're out. But of course, federal money, again, these are federal assistant programs, okay? So it's not mandatory. Nobody is forced to take these federal funds to do things. But given that these are federal assistant programs, they come with a lot of restrictions and requirements and so on. Many of those I'm not a fan of, but anyways, it is what it is, right? But if you choose to use them, then yeah, the money comes with strings, right? Some requirements, like doing the NEPA process and so on. So can somebody else, like the state, do it? I'm not sure. I'll let the TxDOT answer that.
Thank you, Eduardo. So generally the state is limited to what we call, to work on what we call on-system roadways. And this roadway here is not on system. It's not on TxDOT's network. Okay, this is a city street. So we partner with agencies like the MPO to distribute federal dollars. And our task is to make sure that these entities, whether it be the city, the MPO, county, are good stewards of federal dollars. That's our oversight, and that's the extent of our involvement. Okay, but I will tell you that any entity that's funded with federal dollars have to follow the same process. The NEPA process that's being followed here is the same process we follow for any of our roadways. So the process would be the same.
Part of that question is, will Socorro have to reimburse the funding used for the study? I think somebody said possible?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Again, what we're discussing is that, we're researching that, to provide all the details and with references to the regulations and code and so on.
Okay. And then B, will Socorro be penalized for future funding opportunities with the El Paso MPO?
That's a more of a policy question that our Transportation Policy Board, would have to make, right? I mean, at the staff level, we do all the technical work, we make recommendations and so on, but that's, it's a pretty loaded question, but, that's something that the policy board would have to make or not make, right? So I cannot answer for them. What I can say is that there are so many needs in our region, and there's not enough money to do everything, right? So yeah, I mean, it is competitive, right? We've been very, very strong proponents of helping the city of Socorro and overall the Mission Valley in providing transportation, because it's going through a major transformation that, again, whether we like it or not, but it's transforming, and it's creating a lot more traffic, and we have the responsibility to come up with ideas, solutions, projects to address the growth and congestion, the changes in land use, and to solve the problems, try to anticipate them. Well, I guess that the straight answer for part B is that would, I can't answer that. That would be the policy board.
Okay. And then C, has Socorro requested any funding for construction?
Not at this time. No, not at this time.
No.
Correct.
And then part D, is this information stated in any written documents such as an operating agreement?
So I think the key here is, or one of the most important documents is the advance funding agreement that the city of Socorro has with TxDOT. And again, it's with TxDOT because TxDOT is the direct recipient of the federal funds coming from the Federal Highway Administration. So that's the way the process works, right? But that doesn't mean that TxDOT is responsible for the project or anything. They're responsible, like Mr. Trevino said, for oversight, right? But that advance funding agreement is one of the the legal documents. It's a contract, right? So, right. So we've got to look at it very closely and with a lot of detail to see exactly what it says.
Gonna move on to question number 9. Why was Socorro asked to remove their logos from their informative documents, and all 3 entities are supposed to be working together to bring mobile connectivity solutions?
When you say remove their logos, not the city of Socorro, I'm just not sure. You mean, yeah, what do you mean?
The city of Socorro.
The TxDOT, and maybe it was to help alleviate some of the confusion, because
Yes.
this is a City of Socorro project. It is sponsored by the City of Socorro. It's not like the interstate, it's not the gateway, that belongs to TxDOT. There's county roads that belong to the county. These are city roads, city infrastructure that the city is asking for assistance to build to address traffic concerns throughout the community, throughout the valley. The fact that it has an impact on the region is why we were successful in competing with all of the other entities to get funding for this project. So it's needed. The region identified it as a need, the city identifies it as a need. It is our project. It was outlined in the Pell study, and even segments around town. You'll see, if you look around town, you'll see areas that have wider roads. No, sorry, but just to gather, just to give some perspective, right? Development over time, and sometimes I do kind of go off and tell a story. But the point is that this is the City of Socorro project, right?
Why was the city of Socorro asked to remove the logos from MPO and the Texas DOT from any informative documents? If this is a project that involves the MPO and also the Texas DOT.
Can you go to slide 2, I think it was, excuse me. Because of, earlier when you said TxDOT put a video up on YouTube, just because of that, because it wasn't TxDOT, it was the city. And we were having a lot of trouble just with people getting it confused, like they were calling Sal at TxDOT and asking him questions about the project, but it actually is a city project.
It was more for a clarification.
Yeah.
From day one, typically when you see a presentation, the eyes went straight to the TxDOT logo and automatically it was TxDOT. So we were receiving overwhelming calls, so we were talking to the city of Socorro and saying, hey, we probably need to change this because this is a local government project and we don't want to mislead the public on saying, hey, go talk to TxDOT, and we can provide information to the city, so we didn't want to feel like we were not answering questions, so we said, like, let's just work together. This is probably a good thing to remove our logos, that way it is clearly that it's the city of Socorro. But that was the only reason why they were.
No, he cleared it up, yeah. No.
Could you go to slide 7 for this next question, please? Thank you. Thanks for doing that, by the way. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to preempt that.
So up to question 10, are there other options to connect, for example, FM 1110 to the I-10, for example? Have those been discussed? And what other options can be considered at this point instead of Arterial 13A revised?
So the limits for this project on the scope that was presented for as far as the location for Arterial 1, we had to stay within those boundaries. The FM 1110 is outside of that. And as a matter of fact, it was originally the city limits was the lower boundary. And so we in revising the original, which was shown here, I believe that's the original viable alternative 3. We had to look at some areas that if it was possible to actually get out of the city limits for a portion and into the county, it did help alleviate impacting quite a bit of homes. And so we had to get permission and kind of really work a little more with the county to see if they'd be willing to work with Socorro on that part. So that was, we kind of extended a little bit beyond the boundary, but since it was a City of Socorro sponsored project, and the original, the Pell study originally had Arterial 1 within the area that kind of where the alternative 1 through alternative 3 in that little stretch. That was the target area to look for a route there.
And we couldn't get too close to Horizon and 375 or too far from the city when we were looking at the study area.
Can I add a little bit to that?
I'm sorry, sir. I do apologize for that.
Yeah, so on the topic of FM 1110, so when we, as an MPO, when we look at the, regionally, right? And based on the growth and the changes that we're seeing here in the Mission Valley, we're saying, yeah, we need Arterial 1. We need FM 1110. We need these connections to provide that connectivity between Socorro Road, Alameda, North Loop, and I-10. So it's not only, again, Arterial 1 is not intended to solve everything, of course not. FM 1110, there was a project, that was a TxDOT project that was that was pretty much killed almost 10 years ago, 11 years ago. But that was a TxDOT project because FM 1110 is a state highway. So TxDOT was pursuing that, but there was not support for the project, and that was killed. That was 10 years ago. So it would have been so much better if we had that facility already built, right? It would help us with moving the traffic so that we wouldn't have so much traffic continuing on Socorro Road, all the traffic that wants to get to Loop 375 or to El Paso downtown or whatever. So yeah, I mean, for us, it's important to, and you've seen it in the MPO documents, our plans for years. There's been these connections with different names, right? But we've always had those connections because it's part of the grid that we need to have here to provide that connectivity.
You're not talking about the east one, are you?
To
When
the-
you say about Internal 10, you're not talking about this, the new east one? That's not what you're referring to. You're referring strictly to Internal 10, right?
Right, yes.
Okay. Something separate? Oh, okay, perfect. And then just to go back, why were you not able to get so far away from Horizon Boulevard and not so far away from what you had mentioned?
All right, because if we went too close to Horizon, it wouldn't make sense as far as building another large road in so close to an existing one. Going out, we had to stay within the city limits of Socorro. That was the lower boundary. We had to stay within that city limits. That's why we couldn't really go beyond it.
So what I'm understanding is, one of the main issues here is that this arterial forcefully needs to be dealt with in the city of Socorro city limits. You're not allowed to go into the county, correct? Even if it means that if you do go into the county, there's no homes that would be potentially impacted. That's still not considered?
Right, and we did consider that. As I mentioned, we looked at some portions that by moving portions into the county, that did help alleviate with some of the existing homes. That takes a little bit more as far as getting agreements and so forth. You can't go too far beyond that because then it becomes, again, it's not a city of Socorro project, right? But we do what we could to be able to get some of the alignment of the road and some of the new right-of-way out of Socorro.
And it all goes back to the purpose and need for the project. You know, if we have to fulfill the need, and if we go away from where the need is, it's not the same project, if that makes sense. So it's not that we can't go into the other county, it wouldn't fulfill the need for the project.
I'm just saying because if I'm standing here, this is arterial 1. And if we go close to by where the mayor's at, that's the county. So it's not really much of a difference. The only difference is that if I stay here, this is a city of Socorro project. But it doesn't mean that everybody who's gonna use arterial 1 is forcefully gonna be part of the city of Socorro. And if you go into the county, the benefit of that is there's really no homes that are gonna be impacted. And as she mentioned earlier, when it comes to something environmental, it's not gonna be impacted because it's not irrigated. The farmland that's there is not being irrigated.
Well, that's just one factor we look at, so, you know, and one thing I want to mention is another consideration is what we call the project terminus or end point at I-10. We also had to look at how spaced out were the intersection of Arterial 1 with I-10. The Reimagine I-10 study did look at the connections there, and you can't have those, you know, because of the interstate spacing of ramps, you can't have those too close to one or the other as well. So that it's part of the connection that we're trying to make. And I guess if we go to slide 12, that sort of shows the alignment and, you know, what your point is, that there's a lot of farmland to the south. But the issue is a lot of the traffic we're trying to get east-west is in the city of Socorro. So we're on the, yeah, there we go. So I don't know if that helps you at all.
Right, so somehow we had to get back to that area and I-10 because eventually that's a planned intersection on the I-10 corridor. So I think the other alternatives, they were higher up. If you saw both of them kind of met at I-10 at the same spot, that was one of the other future ones. So those are the ones that we have to tie into those to be able to make it work with the overall network for the future.
When you guys did this study and you published it, you said 3A revised was the best because it was less impacting houses. But as you mentioned, this was years back. What about now that you know that there's more houses being built? Is it
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay, so when I say this was recent, what happened was we, in 2024, we revised our constraints maps for all three alternatives and took a fresh look at it and had a workshop with the engineers and all the team. And we still chose the same alternatives because of the neighborhoods and some of the things that are restricted. We can't go straight through and take out, 500 homes. That's not something that NEPA would want allowed to do. If you have another alternative that has fewer homes. So we look at some of those things, and I'm overgeneralizing, but right now we did consider the homes that weren't built, and we even documented those as like at Socorro Road. We knew that there were platted locations there, and we counted those as undeveloped homes, and now some of them are developed. So we're trying to take those comments into consideration and see what we can do. We never stop trying to address issues like this where we try to minimize impacts, and we just do what we can. And there's a footprint that I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm part of the problem. There's a footprint that when you construct a road like this, you have to have certain requirements to meet the engineering needs, the width of lanes, the width of shared use path or sidewalks, and the turnaround locations. All those things play into it, so you have to have enough space. But we're trying to minimize that space to minimize impacts as much as we can.
And I think along this new alignment, the homes being built more are in that Sylvia area. So that's why that's one that, again, from the public meeting we had at Rojas, some of the input, some of the comments we've received, it's allowed us to kind of go back and take a look at and see if there's some alternatives that will help bring that number down. But that's just part of again, this becomes an alternative. At some point, we can create as many alternatives or alignments that may fit, and we look at it from a real high level. At some point now, we got to do the studies to really see, okay, investigate a little more and see if this is still a feasible study, right? A feasible route. There could be, and there's a lot of studies that Kim's team needs to do. There's a lot of the engineering side that still needs to get done before we can come to that conclusion and say, hey, you know what? Yes, it's still feasible, or no, because of whatever comes out of the studies. At that point, then I'm not going to say it's to the drawing board, but you got to take a step back and reevaluate it again. So that's kind of the process. But at some point, we have to pick one to be able to say this one is giving us kind of the numbers. It's kind of looking at it may be more favorable. Let's look at it a little bit more, and that's kind of where we're at with this stage right now.
One more question. Okay.
We do have 10 more minutes.
10 minutes?
Yes.
So question 11, the city of Socorro has shown strong support in protecting its residents' properties and homes. Will the MPO and TxDOT be considerate of people's homes and properties as well?
I'd like to add something before our TxDOT is put in the hot seat on that, or the MPO. The process is what considers your homes, not the entities. They follow the process, and that process of NEPA and minimizing impacts to the human and natural environment, that is what takes into consideration your homes. And that's what I was saying earlier. We're still looking at the alignment, trying to refine it. We haven't even completed the public meeting summary yet. We have all the comments, we've completed the matrix, and that's going to go online. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that before anybody else discusses that it's part of the process. I don't know.
So we just heard from our part, the question was basically for Texas DOT and MPO as well.
So again, our role is just for the oversight. We don't get involved as far as which home to buy, which home we should buy, and so forth. The process itself would consider that process out. We just ensure that the local government are, again, just following the federal process, following the legal process, and then at the end of the day, it is the city's call on whether or not they move forward on purchasing the land or how they come about on acquiring parcel if needed. But the MPO, I don't speak for you, but they're similar. They're just the providing the funds to locals, so they don't get involved in that aspect.
But I will add that yes, it's all about the process, you know, it's not that we don't care, but I think our role is more to ensure that the process is being followed. And, you know, related to the comment about the, you know, removing the logos and all that, that was for clarification. But we have been participating in this project, working it hand in hand with the city of Socorro for the last, what, 3 years, 4 years? Since 2019. So, you know, we're partners in this. But it has to be clear that this is a city of Socorro project. It's not a TxDOT project, it's not an MPO project, but like I said before, we support the project because our responsibility is to provide the, you know, improve the transportation of the entire region, including the Mission Valley.
Good evening. I do not know many of you except for the mayor, not for many years, and I've heard about this project. Unfortunately, too late. It seems to be, I'm going to have a few comments first regarding the questions that were presented. Question number 7 was about the preservation of some kind of a historical agricultural footprint in Socorro. I've been talking to the city of Socorro for years, and I stopped talking to the city of Socorro for that because they were never receptive to that. I always maintained that the city of Socorro should acquire some land to preserve it for the posterity. That's number 1. Number 2, I realized that the project is directly will be paid for by the city of Socorro. The whole project will be paid for basically by the city of Socorro. So I would hope that somehow you will be careful with the taxpayers' money, since it's not always the case. And I would like to propose some alternative that I would have, had I known about the project, I would have proposed right from the start an alternative to the link between Alameda and Socorro Road that could have saved you millions of dollars and can still save you millions of dollars. I understand that most of the opposition of the project comes for homes being demolished or having a freeway passing too close to a neighborhood. And those are valid objections. Unfortunately, they do not have to be objections because there was a very simple solution. I talked to people in the city of Socorro in the past, I'm talking 10 years ago, about creating that Arterial 1 back then. There was 2 projects. There was a project that would have been better than Arterial 1 would have been developing the Border Freeway project. That was the project that was missed. I don't know why. The Border Freeway project, I remember taking the mayor like 5-6 years ago, driving around. It was simple. It was easy. It was a lot cheaper than doing this, but we stuck with this project. With your permission, I'm going to give each one of you two sheets of 2 maps highlighting the road that you forgot to consider. I don't know why, because that would have been the simplest of all between Alameda and Socorro Road. So do I have a permission to pass those papers? Okay. Hey.
Hello, my name is Jeremiah Clark. Live right on the edge, right next to this road where you're putting it here, where it's minimal impact to community and citizens, apparently. I've been here several times the last couple of months. Feel like I got to know you guys, probably irritated a bunch of you. You know, we started this process fighting Arterial 1 and trying to stop this build. Several months ago, we proposed some questions to the City Council. We went through the process. We extended the comment period. We you know, made more comments, and we've never really gotten the results of that. And what would be interesting to me and what I thought we would see here in this meeting is the results of the comments that were received by TxDOT opposing Arterial 1 or being for Arterial 1, as I understand the Ballin residents have done. Is the MPO looking at, I mean, when we looked at those comments throughout this arterials, the 6 different ones, did we just say, hey, this is the minimum impact, so we're not going to do it, and we'd ignore the new comments that came in June, or is that, or do we have those results for that information that we requested several meetings ago?
Okay, you mentioned a lot of meetings. Which meetings in particular?
These City of Socorro council meetings we've been having about Arterial 1. And the comment period for any comments for affected personnel against Arterial 1 in this particular Bill 3A.
I can give you the preliminary, I guess, of the last public meeting.
Like across the 6 of them, when you receive the comments to build or not build,
where did we end up on 3A as far as, is that something the public is supporting, or is that something the public is not, besides the Bauman Group?
So we have not completed the public meeting summary from the last public meeting. However, I have some information for you that I thought this question might come up, and I have some information. There were 119 total commenters, and this will be put online when it's approved, so just so you all know. 132 comments, which means some people commented twice. We just make sure we count both. There were 39 in-person written comments, 83 email comments, and 10 voicemail comments. Oh, I thought I had the numbers here. Lauren, can you help me by getting, oh, I know what, she sent it to me. Hang on real quick. I'm so sorry. I know we're in a hurry here. Lauren sent me that information. My coworker, by the way. She saves me. Just 1 minute. I'm just trying to get to the email. Oh. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you. Okay. So this is, as I said, the preliminary count. 67 commenters were in support of the project. I want to tell you, we never get that many, but 67 supported 3A revised.
Bauman.
A variety of people, even some of them that live in 3A revised. 161 commenters in opposition, which is, you know, a number of people that is a good number to get. We like getting these kind of comments because we understand the issues. 25 commenters did not comment on the, whether it's one way or the other. I do want to mention, it isn't a vote. It's a tally of the comments that we have, and we do consider that, but those are the results. And in the responses to our comments, we have themes, because there were a lot of comments. We'll say these, this was the theme, and here's a response. We will respond to every single comment that we can. Some of them are outside of the project area or don't affect, utilities or something like that. We note those. So I hope that helps, and that will be online. That will be.
Just one more question and
Yes,
one more comment, and I don't know how this works, but being that I'm unaffected, but the road is 50 feet from my house, a 4-lane highway that's gonna have semis up and down all day long, I'm unaffected. So I've sit here for 20 minutes now listening to you guys. I was driving in here listening to you guys. You guys are talking about impacts, and you're not even capturing all of them. And I think you're minimizing them intentionally, and that sucks. That sucks for a citizen like me. But the only other thing is that you're putting this road through a neighborhood. It's impacting everybody there. The impact isn't smaller or less because it's not in county or because of where you put it, or because you moved it out to the edge. You're still affecting people personally that have worked and lived. I've lived here 9 years, and I'm just going to be a loser in Socorro because they're going to put a road next to my house that's going to ruin my peace. Really, really minimizing it here, guys, and that's sad. It seems like big government is really stepping on citizens, and that sucks. Because we're a part of this community, and we're the lifeblood of this community. And I think that some of you people on this committee, you understand that. And you've seen us here, and you've seen how dedicated we are and how we're asking for the help and the support to kill this and to not do this to our lifestyle. But the more we go into this, I feel like we're just going to lose. I really feel like our voices are not being heard. And it's a shame.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I do want to mention, sir, that we look at other factors instead of just direct impacts. We look at noise, we look at air quality, so we do look at other factors that are induced adjacent to the project. We look at all of that as well, and we do document that in the environmental assessment that would be a result of the project.
So basically, you have two maps. I am pretending that that alternative proposal should have been the first proposal considered because it would have saved you millions of dollars. Because between Socorro Road, at the same connection that you connect from Scovey Road along the county of the county of Socorro, yes, you connect on Scovey Road. If you had gone straight through the farm that I own, and I proposed this like many years ago, I had that same proposal to the city. If you had gone straight to that farm, you would have no opposition tonight. The project would be already finished. And you would have saved millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I will prove it. So I ask respectfully that you consider plan number 1, which is going exclusively through my property. You end up at Thompson Road, and you pass next to the cemetery and connect to Socorro Road. Plan number 2, you go through my property and another farm owner on the other side. You do not disturb a single house in the process. You will be able to maintain a fair distance between future development and the traffic. You will be allowed to use all the land surrounding Arterial 1 for public purposes such as schools, stadiums, whatever you wish to add to the project. I am in the process of developing that land at this time. This is how I found out that you had an Arterial 1. I had no idea you had an Arterial 1 proposal. But you would notice that you do not touch any house. You stay like 1,000 feet away from any construction, and you save a fortune. On top of that, we are willing to work with the city as far as donating or facilitating or absorbing some of the costs of the road easement purchase. I mean, we really would like to reactivate that proposal as an alternative proposal that solves a tremendous amount of problems. And I want to, yeah. And
I just want to, your properties, the area in purple?
all the property in purple is my property, yes. The other property belongs to the Davidomskis, and there's one owner between the curve on Thompson Road, the sharp curve on Thompson Road, the cemetery, and Socorro Road. There's only one other proprietor. I can talk to him. He's a friend of mine. That if they do not want to go along with the project, you can use Thompson Road. You can widen Thompson Road and acquire a little bit of land on the left side, and you're in Socorro Road, and you have not bothered a single resident of Socorro proper.
And this doesn't take it to I-10 though, right?
The problem is that part of my farm is in San Elizario. So I already talked to the mayor about it. I said, I don't understand why San Elizario and Socorro do not talk. The two cities do not seem to have much relationship on such an important project. I am sure, I am willing to talk to the mayor of San Elizario, and I know he's all for it, to get the permission for that road to go through my land on the behalf, be a joint project, to be a added interest in the equation here. So I only come here because I heard the project, it was running into problems, hurdles, people are not happy, and I said, come on, this is ridiculous. So I decided to, after talking to many people on a one-to-one basis, I decided to make it official. I'm asking you to consider a third alternative that I think should have been the first. I would like to state again that we're willing to probably donate the land where you will put you don't have to acquire easements. We may be in a position to donate the land in exchange of some consideration that would have to do with ecological embellishment of the area. We'd like to be part of the. If a road would go through our properties, as long as we can have an input on the development of that, it doesn't have to be a straight freeway. It doesn't have to be. It could be beautiful. This is what I think most people forget in the equation. Socorro people are proud of their city. They do. We don't want to look like El Paso. I'm sorry. There's something about Socorro that's being lost at this present time for the lack of considering the alternatives. If ever this road comes into, if this proposal would come to you as a viable proposal, well, I would meet with the planners. there are ways to make that road a beautiful road with green spaces all along and maintaining the pride that people do take in their community. Now, if you just have an arterial one as a quick passage from Socorro no, we don't want a freeway in Socorro. I don't think anybody wants a freeway in Socorro from Socorro to I-10. We want easy access, and I proposed that 10 years ago. At the time Leone was the planning manager, Mr. Leone, planning manager. We actually drove the alternatives, which is going through my farm and going forward up north. Or the most interesting one was always the border freeway to minimize any impact and add development opportunity. That's all I have to say. I thank you for. I really like to put this on the record that you consider that was proposed to you. Actually, free land to build the roads, elimination of any conflict of any landowner or house owner and so forth. That would simplify your life a lot. In exchange, I will request to be considered as allowed to have some input as far as what the shape the road would have. It doesn't have to be a straight road. It could be a beautiful community road that takes the traffic very easily from Socorro to. It has another advantage. It takes the traffic from San Rosario immediately off the loop directly to Socorro, as opposed to go further up the road. You eliminate any traffic from Fabians and Socorro and San Rosario directly through that arterial fourth proposal.
I just want to ask you, you said that you maybe wanted this to be submitted. Did you comment during the public meeting comment period?
I just learned about the project. If you notice, there's a small portion on the purple side and with a little weird shape there above a ditch. It's a proposed subdivision of 44 acres. And as I proposed the subdivision, I discovered there was an arterial one proposal, and that I didn't know there was one until 2 months ago.
I think the comment period was still open. I just wanted to know so we could look up that. That's all. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? By the way, I would really encourage. I proposed at one time to purchase some land for the city of Socorro, and I was told this was not in the what do you call the status of the city. You could not actually use the taxpayer money to purchase land. That's a big mistake. There's some land that you should purchase, and there's one that you should ask for contribution to help you purchase that land. But by the time Socorro is just a bunch of streets and housing, and you don't have a Socorro anymore. By the way, I'm very connected to the historical part of Socorro. I rehabilitated Casa Ortiz. I rehabilitated Casa Apodaca. I acquired all the land around Casa Ortiz, Casa Apodaca, in order to make a historical project there. I'm still considering it, but it would take a little bit more involvement on the city councilmen and councilwomen to make anything worthwhile happening in Socorro. I don't consider another fast food an improvement in Socorro. I wish you would consider the heritage of the city and realize that some land is sacred and should be maintained as so. I said my piece. Thank you very much.
Pierre, if I can add to your comment, I don't think anybody from Socorro, including myself, is in opposition of your offer. But you need to go talk to the folks in San Elizario so we can move the arterial to San Eli if that's something that they show.
Do I have your authorization to contact
I don't care.
them?
If it takes the arterial out of Socorro and moves it to San Eli, I'm okay with that. Thank you. All right.
If you like.
Just a quick thing. Is the impact, to compare the impact between the impact on the Bauman proposal and the one on 3A revised, we're able to have that, right? Are we able to, is that public records so that we're able to compare, or would that be released later? That's the last question.
It'll be available when we complete the environmental assessment if we continue with the studies.
Okay.
And so that would be available in the alternative analysis, and it would look at all the alternatives that we looked at in the comparison.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody.
I wanted to thank you for your questions. They're very well-organized, and thank you so much. This means a lot to us because we do want public involvement. Thank
It
you.
means a lot to us, believe me, and to the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you.